Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new edition of Past the Noise, the podcast where we just have an open forum discussion. We throw out a topic or topics, have a discussion about them, and you are welcome to join in the conversation. You can put a question or a comment in the comment section, or I'll be throwing a call-in link in the comment section as well. You can use that link to come on and talk to us if you like to do that. I am your co-host, Elder Michael Hightower, joined as always by Apostle T.B. Walker. Apostle, how you doing this evening?
I am fantastic. Looking forward to another great episode.
Me too. I know we were talking before we came on the air about, I was in St. Louis late last week visiting some family. And I tell you, I'm just happy just to be back here. I don't know if you've been following Southwest
yes
issues with flights. So I had a flight was supposed to board at 3:20. 3:20 comes, no boarding. 4:20 comes, no boarding. We have the announcement come over. We have a first officer and crew, but no captain. So eventually,
wow.
Yeah, so we're waiting. I'm waiting for the thing to pop up on my screen. I don't see the captain. So at some point it's canceled. They don't even tell us it's canceled. People start walking around their phone saying, we're getting notices that the flight has been canceled. So the flight was canceled. We booked this on the 8:20 flight. 7:57 comes, supposed to be boarding, not boarding. 8:57, not boarding. Now we have a crew, but no captain and first officer. So now,
wow.
Yeah, so now we're waiting. Finally, we board at 10:10. So I'm sitting on the plane at 10:10, texting my wife saying, hey, we're on the plane. Comes over the intercom. We're waiting for bags. So as soon as the bags come on board, we'll leave. Bags and stuff at 11 o'clock before we take off. Take off at 11 o'clock and got to BWI like at 2 a.m. in the morning. And here's the part where, obviously that's not the best travel experience you want to have. Obviously, I wasn't jumping up and down. Because I'm coming to the airport, you walk past the customer service desk. At the Southwest customer service desk, each one is 50 people deep. People who are stuck in the airport trying to figure out where they're going to go, how they're going to get out of there, wherever they're trying to get to. People are sleeping in the airport. The airport was not warm. It's kind of chilly in there. People are sleeping in the airport because they're stuck. So I'm like, yeah, it took me a little longer than I thought to get here, but I'm grateful to be here. It could always be worse, right? It could always be something else that could have happened that could have made it even crazier. But they really had some issues, and that was not fun.
That's a good takeaway though. That when you go through things like that, man, you look around and there's always somebody who's going through something a little bit worse. You look at that and you say, man, it's late, but thank God we're not sleeping in the airport.
Absolutely. Because
is that because of the storm that was going on? Is that
it was multiple things. So the way that Southwest does their airports, they don't do like the traditional hub and spoke thing when you go to some central location and the people go out from there. So if you're I was flying from St. Louis to BWI, your pilot may be on a flight that's coming from
right.
If that flight gets delayed and he doesn't get there, they have to either find another pilot somewhere or do something else. So in their system, they have a way to do that. Like if this flight's delayed and they have a pilot, they know they can do that. Their system was down. So their system was malfunctioning. So they couldn't even assign new crew to these flights. That's why they had to keep canceling. So it was partially weather, but it was a lot of internal technology issues on their end and just the way that their system is set up. And shortages, right? They still have enough people to go around. Like at their customer service desk, it was one person per service desk all over the airport. So everything was fitting people. I mean, you stand there forever.
Well, I'm certainly glad that you're back.
Yeah,
that you're back. You made it back safely.
And I was not alone. So I was like, wow, this is. I'm also I'm here with a bunch of other people who were also having issues. But yeah, so I was, like I said, grateful just to get home safely.
Right.
And take it from there. And when I got here, it was like 5 degrees. So that was but yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah, appreciate it. So hopefully your weekend was warmer and a little less eventful than that. But
yeah, a little less eventful than that. I was just at home, just kind of, with family, just kind of enjoying the weekend and just watching the news and watching some of those same struggles that were happening out there.
Yeah.
So glad you made it through there.
Appreciate it. So let's get into tonight's
okay.
topics. Let's just jump right in. So we had talked before about what's going on, what went on with Deion Sanders, Coach Deion Sanders at Jackson State University. If you haven't been following, Jackson State is a HBCU, small school, relatively speaking, and he sort of elevated the football program and elevated himself to the point where he got an offer for what they call Power 5 jobs, so the top level type of job. So he's taking the job, or he's taking the job at the University of Colorado. A lot of backlash about, did he use, the HBCUs as a stepping stone? Did he betray them in some way? Did he have an obligation to stay and, I guess, try to build the program to Power 5 level? Just interesting, a lot of interesting conversation. Now, one of the conversations, we have a clip we'll check out, but one of the conversations involved, it's Division I sports, so it's money, right? It's about the money. So take a look at this clip, and then we can talk through some of this stuff.
Deion went out and asked people of the LeBron statures and these type of guys in the business that are black African-American people that are billionaires. Hey, man, it ain't going to be another figurehead like me as a black coach coaching black men. There's not going to be another one of me. This is your time to jump and get in here. You want me to stay? You want to do this and make a change? Let's start dumping some money. No one did. Chirp, quiet, crickets. So what are you going to do? Stay there and be in a JUCO facility and not move up?
These people are pro-black, though. If you look at what Diddy doing with Revolt, remember they have all those little conferences. They got Killer Mike on stage, and they talking all that stuff. Until we own, we're 13% of the population. Until we own 13% of the wealth in this country, our job is not done. Your job is not done. I remember that speech. If Deion went to them and was like, "Look, this our shot right here. We got all this exposure, all these eyes on us. The one thing we got going for ourselves as black people, where we undeniably better at everybody else, we produce the best athletes. We should own that. All right. Our colleges should be the best college, to have the best programs and bring in the best money. So we got the best facilities and the best everything." They're pro-black though. They care about the community. They got Twitter fingers when somebody do something wrong. they let you know. They let you know exactly how they feel on Twitter.
Yeah, they'll talk about it, but doing something is a whole different story, man.
Yeah. So as someone who attended an HBCU, myself, I went to Howard. I think you did as well.
Well, no, I went to University of Tennessee.
Okay, that's right. You went to Tennessee. So this is not a new conversation. Like I date myself. I was in college in the 80s, and because I went to school in DC, the big talk was, why didn't Patrick Ewing go to Howard? Why did he go to Georgetown instead of Howard?
Right.
So if he had come here, would have made the program this and that and the third. I mean, that's just not how it works. You have to have a certain infrastructure in place to sort of accommodate those kind of athletes, and the infrastructure really revolves around what they were talking about in that clip, which was the money. These schools where the football program is big, they have boosters who are giving millions of dollars. They have all this other economic support. I mean, it takes a lot of economic support to sort of make that happen. So if Deion did that and got crickets back, I mean, I get it, because traditionally HBCUs, they value sports to a certain degree, but they don't really care about winning national championships and stuff like that. It just wasn't a priority. It's not on their top line things to do. And if you don't make a certain level of commitment to it, you're just not going to be able to do it. And yeah.
Well, HBCUs, they also, there's a huge financial struggle. There's a great difference in the money. They don't quite have the backers and the boosters that some of these other colleges have. So it's clear that when Deion went there, he was going to make a sacrifice. I understand where Deion is, where he's coming from. I saw an interview where he talked about the fact that, that there was times when the lights would go out, or that, they were showering without any hot water. There was one clip where the guy was saying, hey, listen, we shot the whole game from a hallway, because they had given the seats that we were supposed to have, they had given them away to someone else, right? So I understand where Deion has had to make a decision. The problem I have is that the way he came into it. God sent me here. God sent me here to save the HBCUs, right? Okay, God has sent him here. All of a sudden, as if he didn't know that the facilities were shabby, as if he didn't know, what he was getting into. And somehow after 2 years, I think not getting support was there, without a doubt. But I just don't like the idea that he kind of set himself up as a savior and then set himself up as exit man all at the same time when it simply did not work. He gave it 2 years. That's great. Did you think Deion Sanders thought that this was a 2-year turnaround? Was this contingent upon Jay-Z and Diddy and everybody else coming in? Did he say, listen, and I'm bringing big donors with me? Or did he know he was coming to Jackson State with those facilities, with those guys, with the boosters that they had, and it was going to take 5-10 years to build that program? That's the major problem I have. And the second problem I have is not just Deion leaving, but like gutting the whole, I'm taking everybody with me. I'm going to take the best players with me. So everything that he started, it's one thing to start it and say, hey, listen, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let somebody else take over. But it's a whole other thing to start it, then say, hey, it didn't work, and then gut what you left. He's really basically destroying, or not saying destroying Jackson State. He's putting Jackson State right back where they were. He's basically saying, listen, you guys go back to obscurity. I'm going to take my sons and the rest of these high-ranked guys, and we're going to do something at Colorado. And I think that's the shame of it. The optics are really more what I have a problem with than the reality of the situation.
Yeah, and I think, as I was saying earlier about that, I think the whole savior complex thing at HBCUs is part and parcel of the problem. Like Jackson State knew what they were getting. They knew they were getting someone who didn't go to HBCU himself, right? And who was probably going to. I mean, he's a professional football coach. At the end, when it's all said and done, he's going to do what's best for his professional career. The idea that he was going to sacrifice himself or part of himself or his career for them was foolish on their part. I get where you're coming from, but I think that as the employer, as the school that's going to bring him in, you got to understand what you're getting. You're getting. This is who he is. He's probably not going to stay if he has any success. And when he leaves, like he's going to take the players and whatnot. But that's what they all do. I mean, if you think that somehow he was going to be different than all these other guys, they leave and take their recruits with them, right? They leave, and the guys who committed to the school that they were at now commit to the school that they're going to. That's not new. I mean, that's not. But if you play in this pond of trying to be big time when you don't have that infrastructure, this is sort of what can happen to you when you're left holding the bag. Because he had no opportunity to stay there other than what was in his deal. Like, I'm sure his deal was like he might have had a buyout clause or whatever. But it's just to your point, the optics. I think for me, as someone who attended the HBCU, to the extent that they played themselves. That's to me, but that's what I have an issue. But if I'm embarrassed for them, it's because, come on now, y'all should have known better.
I don't think Jackson. Listen, I'll be honest with you. I think Jackson State is just going with the flow. I don't think Jackson State didn't put a lot. When you look at how they spoke and they said, Deion didn't. He didn't spend his money for everything. We also contributed, money along with that. Now, when you think about the idea, it's kind of like saying to a teacher, she didn't spend all of her money on supplies. We contributed. That's kind of crazy that Jackson State is in the mindset that just contributing, to the coaches extra money to make the facilities better. They kind of thought that was a normal thing, which is not normal. So I think Jackson State played the short game. I think they recognized what was going on. I think that you have people that are crowing more about it than Jackson State is because they just didn't make the investment. Maybe they didn't go any further. They didn't do a whole lot of fundraising. There was Deion Sanders that really went out there and, tooted the horn and played the trumpet and did the dance, for people to come. I think Jackson State let the players down. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. But I think Deion did play the savior. And by playing the savior and then exiting in 2 years, this was not a natural situation. Remember, Deion Sanders was not talking about this as just general college football. He said this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? He said this, we've got to elevate this particular group to another level because it's not fair. That's what he said. So this isn't just the same way of leaving USC and going to Duke, or leaving Duke going to Michigan. This was a special project that he said God sent him to fix.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? Did God decide that the Colorado was better? Did God decide, you know what? I'm a Bison today, right? Isn't that what Colorado Bison?
Yeah.
Or Buffaloes or whatever. Buffaloes or Bison. Yeah. One of those. I mean, is that what happened? So I think that's the real problem. And I think the idea that, you know, when Deion makes a call to the larger, more wealthy Black community and there was no answer, there was crickets, I think that says a lot about us putting our money where our mouth is. I think that really kind of says something about the community, about our community. And because I know that Deion made the call, the idea that this wasn't attractive enough to the very same people who are out there crowing about the HBCUs, but yet not sending their sons there, not sending their daughters there, is very telling about the HBCUs and their future.
No, it's an ongoing. It's not. I mean, they're sort of like not stuck, but they do inhabit this place where they have, some of them have aspirations that are larger than what their facilities and what their infrastructure was.
Absolutely.
So you have this tug of war where it's like, man, we just got a player or two, we just did this, we just that, we could really have a really good program. I mean, with all the 5-star Black players, we should be, get some of them and be able to be top. Now, I get all those arguments, but it's just, I know, again, having attended one, they just don't. In order to do that, you need the entire school behind that sort of effort.
Yes,
and it just doesn't happen. And it's just, like I said, it's just, and I mean, it's not something that we weren't fine with. Me and my fellow class, it was a reality. Like, it was reality that the football stadium is a high school football size football. That's just
right.
What it is. And they're not going to make any real attempt to fix it, because you got to make, in order to do that, you have to make an investment that they're not going to make in order to get the return. And so what Deion tried to do was try to get the investment from outside.
Right.
Maybe then we can do it. But the people are like, this is not how we're used to playing the game. This is not how we're used to doing it. Now, Deion was at, USC or UCLA and doing it. It'd be, oh, yeah. We got to bring the program back to promise. But because there's really never been an HBCU program elevated to that level financially, it really is an unknown. So it's like, what are you talking about? That doesn't even sound right. We can give millions of dollars to Jackson State football program.
Well, it seemed like an unknown, but look what happened in those 2 years. Remember, it was definitely an unknown until Deion did it for 2 years. Right? We saw the level. We saw the number of players that were willing, that were number one players in their positions that were willing to say,
he got it.
We'll forget going there, Michigan. We'll forget going to Ohio State just to play with Deion Sanders. If that wasn't enough for the wealthy Black community to do, who have the money, who's showing us pictures of yachts and, big bling, to literally come and say, let's give some of that to Jackson State. We have this opportunity. I think that this was a huge opportunity that was missed. And I think Deion did, I think he abandoned the ship that he knew was going to sink eventually without that outside help. The inside help, boosters doing it, no way. That was not going to happen. This probably was a once in a, I don't know, I don't want to say lifetime, but in our lifetime, to be able to see this level, the program brought to this level where Jackson State was national, was in the national conversation. And literally, where were they going to go with all these number one players that were going to come to Jackson State? What was the potential? Would it be fair for them to go and play in a gym or on a field that was worse than the field that they played on in high school?
No, right.
No, we could. I mean, because there were lots of their future was at stake. Not just what's going to happen with Deion, what's going on with Black people, what's going on with the state of their college. No, their careers were at stake, and I think that they had to make a move. It really says a lot about HBCUs. It says a lot about where we are as people and our support of the things that we say are important that we just don't put our money behind.
Well, if the financial support isn't there generically, right, for everything, for libraries, for infrastructure, for scholarships, then why would it be there for the football program? Like, I think there's a bit of a sort of delusional thing there. Like, if people are not in the habit of giving to these schools, why would you give to them because Deion did? Like, he's not gonna open my pocketbook. Like,
star power. Deion was hoping for the very same thing. Star power.
It's the star power sometimes only goes so far. As we saw in this case, it only goes so far. Like, you only do so much with star power.
Right. Well, you know, as it pertains as it is here. Now, you know, I mean, if it's AIDS, you know, we are the world. I mean, star power has gone a long way in other cases, right? You know, we're gonna stop apartheid in Sun City, and we ain't going to Sun City, right? So I mean, they made songs about it. So you know, when the community wants to rally around something, it is proven that it's able to bring hundreds of millions of dollars to bear.
Yeah.
Did we really have? Was there really the care?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, listen, if you can start a record label, if you can start, you know, your own streaming service, and if you can start all these things, it means that the money is there. The question is going to be, was the desire there to really build these HBCUs? And I think the truth of the matter is, the answer is absolutely no. We've been hearing the begging for years. Come on. You know, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And, you know, we've been hearing that for years, and yet people have looked and said, okay, click, let's go on to the next thing. What? Jay-Z is going to be where? I'll spend the money there. But the $2 and we'll take anything. Nobody's paying attention. I think that the chickens have just come home to roost.
Yeah.
There was an opportunity.
Yeah. I think it was once in a lifetime. I don't think you're going to see that sort of opportunity come through again.
Who's going to do this again?
I don't.
I mean, this was a big crash and burn on a huge scale.
Yeah.
Who's going to do this again? You might as well start at Colorado from this point on.
True. If you can, yeah, you might as well do that. Yeah.
Well, Deion Sanders probably could have.
He probably could have. There's going to be there's going to be a lot of athletes that are going to come out that could have that probably could have followed this model and said, I'm going to Bethune-Cookman after this because I saw what Deion did. Right. You know, and I'm going to take all my talents and I'm going to take those to Fisk because I saw what Deion did. Not now. Because I saw what happened to Deion. Yeah, true. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Switching gears and speaking of schools, I don't know how I came across this, but I'm just going to play the clip because it just speaks for itself. And then we have a conversation about this.
The after-school Satan Club met for the first time here at Holmes Elementary. This has controversy brewing throughout the school district and the community.
I let my kids believe in whatever the hell they want to believe in, as long as they're happy and it's not hurting them or hurting someone else.
Christina Long sorts through her kids' bag.
Got some pencils and we got a sticker.
New school supplies from her kids' new group, the after-school Satan Club. Did your kids have fun today?
Oh yeah, they had a blast. They can't wait for the next one.
It's sponsored by the Satanic Temple. The after-school program is popping up around the nation and in many schools that also give space to Christian groups. In Ohio, there's 3. Lebanon, Eaton, and now Wilmington.
We look to Satan as a symbol for standing up to tyrannical authority. To us, Satan is a symbol. It's like Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy.
The new group isn't about conjuring up spells. Instead, June Everett, the After-School Satan Club National Director, says it's about critical thinking, creative expression, and inclusion.
We don't talk about Satanism, even though we are non-theistic, meaning we don't believe, again, in a supernatural Satan. We don't push it on the kids.
Playing devil's advocate is Jane Johns. She stands alongside others that question the Satan Club's motives.
I think most people are frightened by hearing that. I mean, that is a little uneasy to take in.
Wilmington City Schools released a lengthy statement that reads in part, the After-School Satan Club is not a district or school-sponsored event, and it does not endorse the activities or the intent of the group or any religious groups.
I understand that we have to have both. You know, if you allow one, you have to allow the other.
Listen, let me be silent here. I'm very anxious to see what because you came across this, so I'm very anxious to see what your take is on this. I couldn't wait for this moment right here.
So first thing is you have just let people talk. You just hear the nonsensical arguments. Like the first thing is that you got to have the counterweight, right? So we have Christian after school groups, and you have to allow this other group. I think freedom of speech or whatever. But it's not true, right? It's not true that you have to have all these things in your school. The school decides what after school programs they will allow. Mm-hmm. There's no opposite to the karate club or to the chess club. If you have a chess club, you have what is the opposite? Like this is sort of a direct attack on Christian groups and on Christian groups that have after school programs. And so what you're seeing with these things, with the parent who said, I don't care what they're doing, I just, as long as my kids are having fun. That she's probably represents more than half of the parents at the school. Like, we don't care. Like, as long as no one's getting hurt or doing anything, they're doing arts and crafts, whatever. They're just ignoring the whole Satan thing. But I think it's interesting that you could even have a club, not necessarily affiliated with a school, but doing a activity at a school, at a primary school, that would have Satan in the title. That would be run by a group from a satanic temple. That this is out in the open. Like, these things are now out in the open, and I think that what we see now is just people just don't care, right? I mean, it's right. Like, it's right here. Like, we're not hiding it. We're not like We're just, this is who we are. It's what we're doing. It's what we believe, and we're going to run a program in your school that your kids can come after school. I mean, that the things was in the bags. Like, you had this this sticker with the Satan caricature. And your kids like, okay, here's this math thing, here's the syllabus for this, here's this. No, the Satan Club. I'm like, what are we doing? I mean, it's I mean, I was taken back a little bit, but at the same time, I wasn't really surprised. I wasn't surprised because this is kind of where we're heading. We talked about last week about culture wars and how had this ongoing thing, and how, now it's become sort of fashionable to sort of poke Christians in the eye and sort of like make fun of them or have this counterweight to them. So I think this is sort of in keeping with where we are as a society.
Sure, and you know what, I get where you're coming from, but I think there is an opposite, right? I mean, if you have boys sports, you got to have girls sports, right? Because there is that kind of that opposition. There is an opposite of God, right? There is Satan. So I think that as you look at that, there is that if God is going to be here, if you're going to have after school programs here that have good news programs, or this is the Christian after school program, right? Then it opens the door in some ways for this type of group, right? It opens the door for that type of group because we just make the assumption that if you have Christ in school, somehow that's good. Right. And I think that's what's been accepted here, that Christ in school is the good one. Satan in school is the bad one. And I think that in a secular world that we're living in, I think that that's exactly what's happening, is that they're saying, okay, it's like boys sports. If you're going to bring Christ here, then we've got to have a counterweight to what we look at as the real tyrant. Here's what we're teaching. We're teaching critical thinking. We're teaching science. We're teaching smart stuff, while you guys are over there talking about fairy tales. Because you notice that she equated, without having to say Christ, she equated it like, well, it's like Satan is kind of like Santa Claus. Without saying it, also like Jesus. Like none of them are in existence. So I think that that's what you're really seeing. But I think another thing that for me, that you're really seeing is that I think this is a smokescreen. The truth of the matter is they're talking about Satan, right? But they're not talking about Satan of the Bible. They're talking about Satan that they kind of created, right? That he's not the evil character that we see in the Bible. There's no supernatural component. And so as we look at Satan being put out there in capital letters with the pentagram, man, that's the natural thing to kind of shoot your arrow at, while we're teaching our children about being about transgender relationships, while we're normalizing all types of other lifestyles that the real Satan is really doing. This one is the smokescreen where there is no devil here. There's really no Satan here. There's no doctrine here, where the other one is absolutely counter to everything that the Bible teaches. So they're teaching that under the guise of education, but they're giving the after school program and putting a big S. And I think that devil gets a victory here by looking and saying, you guys are fighting the name Satan, but not fighting the lifestyle, the satanic, demonic lifestyles that are being taught to your kids early on. That they're making decisions about, am I a boy or a girl? I'm not sure whether I'm gay or not. Like, don't call me Mr. Hey, look, Mister, look at you. I'm not Mr. That's not my pronoun. So as all these things are happening, the real Satan is working on our children, teaching violence. And yet this other Satan that they've created is the one I think that we're going after. And that's the one that they're promoting isn't the Satan of the Bible. It's dangerous, no doubt about it. But I think there's a greater level of danger in us going after Satan, who teaches, this Satan club is like, we don't even believe in Satan. We don't even think that he supernaturally exists. We don't think he's really real. We're going to teach critical theory and critical thinking. But you guys actually believe in a Satan, and here's what you're teaching. Here's what your cartoons are showing. Here's what here's the commercial. Here's the two polar bears that are two females that are together in that same Christian classroom that are fighting about the Satan that is being created by an after-school program, but not a Satan that is actually going against the people who are saying, no, but this is like just to make a good society. This is to kind of normalize certain things in society. We're being fair over here, but let's cut out that Satan club. I'm not for the Satan club, but I can see that there's a trick here that we're missing in our schools. And, because here's the thing. I'm not sure that any of this is supposed to be in school. I don't think that I think that's kind of the problem.
Well, I was going to say, I think that when you talk about what is not allowed in the school in terms of after school programs, it's up to the school, right? You file the application, you put an application in, and then it goes from there. And so, to your point, you don't have to have any after school programs, right? There's no law that says you have to do that. I think when we get caught up on the whole freedom of speech arguments, and you got to have this, and you got to allow that, you have the right to do this. That's when you end up with the weight, and we have a weight, and we have to have a counterweight. You don't have to have any of them. Like, so my point would be, if you have an issue with the Satan Club, get rid of the Satan Club and the Good News Club. That we don't have any club in the school. Like, our schools are not going to be a battleground for these kind of things, because that's really what the schools are turning into. Whether it's CRT or other things, or you talking about the drag shows in school, wherever it is, the schools have now become sort of proxies for culture wars, the things that we're fighting over in society at large, and they're using the schools as sort of like, I bet we can get this in the school, or we can't get it, we keep this out of school, and that's really not the issue. I mean, if you're concerned that your child is going to be converted by the Satan Club, then you might want to step it up as a parent, because you got other issues in your life other than the Satan Club. Like they're just doing whatever they're doing, but as a parent, that should not be something that like has you shaking your boots. You're like, it shouldn't. And also a wake-up call to for parents just in general. Like, these things are out there. Like, whether they're in the school or not, these clubs and these organizations and people who really do believe in Satan and all the other things you talked about, those things are real. They exist. They are impacting your kids. When people come into the school and talking about be free to be whoever you want to be, and I mean, that's the most dangerous doctrine of all, is do whatever you feel. Do whatever is in your heart. That's really the most dangerous thing you can tell anybody, but especially a kid, because that's not, at the core, you're telling them to believe in yourself, right? Just trust yourself. Trust man. Trust your intelligence. Trust your science. Trust what you think. I mean, that is not perhaps. I think that's the most dangerous sort of doctrine that can be out there. That's really the opposite of the Bible. Don't trust yourself. Lean on yourself. Don't lean on the spiritual power. You got this. Haven't you been through this before? Aren't you smart? That's the thing that people should be really leery of and wary of. The club could be canceled at any time, but you still have this thing where it's still like, even though it's a misrepresentation, it's sort of like a cartoonish misrepresentation of the Bible. Because we talked about, she said, we don't believe he's real, like Santa Claus and this, and like we're teaching all these other things. It's like, okay, I mean,
but they're using the same old symbolism, right? That's the trick here, is that they're not promoting the Satan of the Bible, right?
Right.
But we also understand that if you use all the same symbolisms, eventually children are going to do what they do every day. Here's where the article stopped. Now let's Google it to see if there's more. Right? That's what kids are doing on a regular basis. That whatever things stop at, they want to know more, right? I mean, kids are learning, Christopher Columbus, did he discover America? Well, they're going into Google, right, to find out. Well, it turns out he really didn't, because here's the real, what do you think they're going to do with that symbol of Baphomet? What do you think they're going to do eventually with the 5-pointed star? So, at the end of it, it is parents being up in arms, and I'll tell you why, because they're not equipped to teach concerning spiritual things, and that's the problem. This is a spiritual conversation and concern that is just wrapped around something that is civic. And because parents aren't doing that job, because they expect it, You know what? This prayer in the schools is gone. That's why we're all messed up. No, it's because there's no prayer in the house. So of course they're wide open to so I think that as people are looking and feeling great about themselves and making sure that the Satan Club that it didn't go forth in certain areas. The city council, we took a vote, the school that decided no way for the Satan Club. That's not a victory. The victory is the idea that we're afraid of it, the idea that's there, and what you said initially is that this is that ability to poke fun, use the First Amendment. Listen, we've got the great you've got Moses and we've got the 10 Commandments at a courthouse, right? Didn't the Church of Satan come and want to make sure that they had the symbol of Satan out there, right? Simply because if we're going to be out here with freedom of speech and equality, this is what it brings about. And I don't think there's any way around it in our society. I think there's no way around it other than the teaching that comes from the home. We're going to see all this debauchery out among us. But if these children are learning everything they learned from school, if they're getting their spiritual and religious understanding from a teacher, if they're getting it from an after-school program, man, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. And we are really afraid because so much of it is coming from people that it's not supposed to come from.
Yeah.
There'd be no room for it in the community if the communities were right.
Right.
Right, the communities are wide open. The Satan Club is it's really an indictment against the community. The fact that that's there, that's comfortable, and that that it's out there. That there are a number of parents that are literally saying, "I'm with that. That's not a bad program." No program can last if the parents don't come. No after-school program can last if parents don't come. What does it say about a program that can make it because parents are there and they want what they view as critical thinking, no matter what symbol is above it? That's America. We're getting to see America. That's really America. I mean, that's where we are right now. In truth, that's really America, and we just have to come to grips with this place ain't like it used to be.
Well, the saying of freedom isn't free. Freedom comes at a cost. And one of the costs is you have to be vigilant, right? With yourself, with your family, with your kids, with
absolutely
your loved ones. That's sort of the cost of living in a free society, because in a free society, anything can and does happen. And I mean, we've done many shows about the things that are happening in schools and outside of schools.
Right.
When you live in a permissive society that will permit just about anything, you got to be on your guard at all times.
Right.
And that's sort of the cost that we pay for living in not that we built this society, but because we live in a free society, that's sort of what we have to be willing to do and willingness to speak up about these things. If you equip your kids right to handle these kinds of things, then they should be able to go into the school and talk about their faith and their beliefs
right
in a way that's not in a way that they're not defensive or anything like that, but they just can calmly and plainly explain what they believe. That will really be the test at the end, is like, can the kids go into that school do that? The Christian kids, or could the kids who come from Christian families, can they do that? Right? Can they explain to their classmates why they're not going to the Satan Club?
Right. I mean, that's kind of what we do every Sunday morning, right? I mean, people who go to church on Sunday, there's a mosque not far. There's a temple not far from them, right? There's a synagogue not far from them. They don't come and say, I don't want a Jewish synagogue in my neighborhood. I'm Christian. There's a mosque that's like 4 miles from me. We don't need that around here. That's going to corrupt our children. No, they understand why they're believers, right? They understand that. I think that's the missing piece. If you look at the parents, and I looked at some other articles, and they weren't able to articulate that very well. It just seemed like we don't want it. It's not a good thing here. The idea of Satan is not they really didn't articulate to me very, very well. And I think it's kind of telling about the Christian community. Not that, the growing voice that you hear from the opposition, if you will, comes because of the silence of the believer.
I think anytime you factor or you have fear in the equation, you're going to have irrational acts. You're going to have panic.
Right.
That's what fear does. You're going to have panic. You're going to have sort of desperation that we got to get this thing out of here no matter what. And you're not going to have calm, rational, anything. You're not going to have prayer. You're not going to have people just saying, let's take a deep breath as a family and see,
right,
and go from there. And I think that's part of what was the intent here was sort of like to, again, to stick a finger in the eye of Christians and say, hey, here you go, and to see what the reaction would be.
I think they knew what the reaction was going to be. They knew, in the end of the day, here's what you have to do. Here's what you guys have to do is what you've always done, right? You have to win people, right? You have to win people. That's what, and I think that they're looking and saying, you guys that aren't winning people anymore. You don't have a cohesive argument anymore. You guys are sticking with some of the same old stuff, but you're not thinking about your faith, and being confident in the faith enough to be able to say, you watch and see. That's going to simply die as a result of the growth that's going to happen in what God is doing here. That we don't have to burn places down. We don't have to look at, there's a strip club over here. Let's shoot every stripper that comes out. Like we don't have to do that. We win the stripper, right? That's really the goal. That we don't have to destroy every prostitute and pimp. We want to win the prostitute. There are people there in that who say they don't believe in Satan, but they need to be won.
Right.
And I think we miss it by fighting it versus looking and saying that's a battleground. That's a fertile ground to win souls who actually think they're thumbing a nose at Jesus without realizing that you're just inflaming and getting started the evangelistic fervor that I think Christ really expects. As we look at our society, this is supposed to energize us, not literally make us go into our corner and isolate ourselves and say, whoever comes over here, I've got my dukes up.
I think the problem with that is there's a softness in Christianity. There's a softness in there that's sort of like, I want to believe, I want to be a believer, but I don't want to pay any of the costs that go along with
right. That's exactly.
I don't want the persecution. I don't want to I don't want to be shunned or anything of that nature. When in fact we've been told already. Not that it might happen. It's probably it's absolutely positive.
It's
a guarantee.
You're going to make people uncomfortable.
It's a money back guarantee that's going to happen. And so I think we read it, we know, we hear it, but I think there's a disconnect in terms of what that actually looks like. And I think until we get that, the thing is closed and you say, that's what this is. This is the fight. This is the fight right here.
This is the end time fight that we've been told about, right?
Right. This is it.
This is it. This is what it looks like. And so the fact that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, we need to not look and say the school district that's their fight. No, this is really our fight. And there's a way to win this fight, and that's by winning them. It's by looking at them and realizing, okay, I see some people who are lost. Now, what do we do with the loss? Do we look at them and say, so throw them out? Let's raise our flag higher. Or do we now look and say, let's win them? Let's change this. I know where the heart is. You wouldn't have had an after-school Satan club without trying to poke at Christ. Well, he's awakened. He's here. And guess what? He's not mad at you, though. He loves you, and he's going to love you out of your ignorance. There's some things you just don't know about him. So what they say, we don't believe in anything. That's meant for us. That's an evangelistic. That's for us. We're supposed to be salivating. Oh, there's a non-believers. Man, what do we want to do? Right. We want them as far away from us as possible. Send them to another state. We don't hear. That's who Christ is saying. Now that's who you're going to be after this season. What they're teaching this kind of lifestyle, man. That's your target this season. He's got lipstick on and big eyelashes. And has called himself Donna when he used to be Don. Yeah, great. Now, am I disgusted by him? No, I'm supposed to be drawn to that problem because God has given us a solution. Until we really see that these are evangelistic opportunities, well, we need to flood some of those after-school programs and to be able to see, hey, what's going on? And listen, here's how we can help. We can help turn that Satan thing around, and so that you could actually get the good news.
Yeah, and I think that the parent you interviewed who said, "I don't care what my kid believe, as long as no one's being maimed or harmed and whatever, as long as they come home safe and sound. I mean, whatever they want to do is fine with me." I think she represents more than 50% of
no doubt
the school.
Listen, that's the picture of our world.
Yeah,
that's the picture of the world. The younger group, the nuns, the people that don't believe anything, they're growing. And these are pictures. They were always going to be parents. They were going to no longer just be a bunch of kids who weren't going to school, going to church. They were going to grow up and have babies and be parents, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
You know, and so she's coming and saying, I just want to say that doesn't sound like something that's different than what I wanted for my kids. I don't know that I would have said, I don't care what they do,
Right.
but you know what, the safety aspect, the fact that they would be well-rounded and happy citizens, I wanted that for my kids too.
Mm-hmm.
And if she's saying, I can only find that in the Satan after school, there's something we need to listen to.
And we have a comment. William A. Hill says, our children can't do at school what they are not taught at home. No. And if what they're taught at home is fear, or they don't have the knowledge, biblical knowledge, scriptural knowledge, and they don't know Christ, then there's nothing else but fear. I mean, what else is left? I mean, you don't know enough to fight this battle.
Sure, and what you have is a fear of God. You know, the great fear here is the very same fear that Satan tried to bring about with Eve, right? I mean, initially, God's cool, but then, you want him to be fearful. He doesn't want you to be like him. He doesn't want you to know what he knows. Right? He knows the day you eat of this fruit, you're going to be just like him, right? So we eventually take God, who we love in this country, and we even believe in manifest destiny. God, you brought us here to have this country. Now to the point where people are saying, well, I'm kind of fearful of Christianity because it's small-minded. That it's bigoted, and I don't want my children a part of something that is going to be marginalized and keep them in a marginalized place. So there's a fear now of God, and some of that we've got to take credit for that. But what we have to see is an opportunity, not to fight for the old flag, but to realize that this is an evangelistic opportunity. This is what the new world order looks like, and that our job is still the same.
No,
you're prostitutes teaching a third period. It'd be the same. You can't do it, but at the end of the day, it's not like, and let's get her out here and throw in the dump. It's like she needs to get saved. She's a prostitute teaching third period English. There's a problem here, and it's not she's teaching third period English only. She's a prostitute. She needs Jesus. And I think as Christians, we miss that. We get into civics and we miss our true call, which is why we can't fight this on the level we need to fight it.
Right. Well, I think to Pastor Hill's point, and the children are not being equipped, right?
That's a good point too.
And so, part of your reaction is, I think when you know your child's not equipped, then you sort of panic too, like, oh, these gotta get this thing out of here before
absolutely
they bring some harm to my child. But that's a wake up call, right? That's a wake up call to get your kids to a point where they are equipped. They should be equipped. I mean, if they're like, if to your earlier point about these things are all over the place, if they're going to function in the world, then they've got to be equipped to deal with whatever they see. I mean, whatever
that's right.
They go out, whether it's school or somewhere else, then they've got to be equipped to handle whatever they may come across. And you don't know what they may come across. Now we're seeing stuff. I mean, when we were in school, some stuff we see today, we would have never dreamed, and our parents never dreamed that we even see the stuff we see now in schools. No way, no how. Like, we got the whole watch out for, the guy, the stranger, don't get in somebody's van, don't take money. But nobody ever said, watch out for your fifth period English teacher because she might try to make it. But that was not a list of warnings. I mean, now we're having to do those kinds of things with kids in school, and it's just that's where our society is. And as our society moves, then the Christian parent has to move and up their game, so that their kids get for all the additional craziness that we didn't have to experience, that their kids will experience.
Well, you know what? Listen, I mean, there's a problem. Part of this is that we've got cultural Christianity and we've got committed Christianity, and they're not the same. Cultural Christians are not hearing the warning that's been going on for years. This third grade teacher that we're, kind of talking about hypothetically has been prophesied in the churches for a long period of time. The idea that this was going to be this way, that's been prophesied for a long time. But while we were just playing games and having coffee clatches and really not listening to what was coming, we're shocked now by what pastors and leaders have told us in the last 30 years. Here's what's going to come. They're going to be lovers. And let me explain to you how homosexuality is going to run rampant in the country. Let me explain to you what violence is going to happen. And we amended and then went down and said, so, you know, what's going on next week, Joe? And we just, you know, we drank coffee and we just had fun and enjoyed the fellowship. And we're looking forward to the next hayride. And we really didn't take heed to these days. And now we're shocked. And you find out these weak answers to why don't you want the Satan Club in your school? And you hear the him and Hans, like, just the thought of Satan. I mean, just the idea of, you know, a Satan, it just, whoo, that seems, what happened to all those years, Christian? That's a cultural Christian. And what you're seeing is cultural Christianity can't work against the attack of the real devil. Real Christians are going to be able to stand. But many people in this nation are cultural Christians, just, you know, by proxy. And you know what? That's why they're being shook. That's why they're shaken up by a 5-point star. That's why they're looking and saying, well, my kids don't know anything and I don't know anything. Let's just get them out of here so that they don't defeat us, because none of us know anything. As opposed to, there's a war going on. I've been teaching my children from youth to be prepared to come against this kind of thinking. Listen, if I teach my son, you know, listen, you don't want to play, you're not supposed to be out there playing football, you know, naked. You know, you don't want to be out there being tackled naked. Then when they have naked football, I'm not going to worry about, like, was my son, did he make the starting team? No, he's going to be repulsed by it because I've taught him early. Naked football, nah. We don't do that around here. Until we start doing that, we're going to have generations of parents and young people. And that's who those people are. They were young kids who just missed it. They weren't taught. They didn't have to go. So guess what? What do you think they're going to do with their kids? We thought that they just going to stay home. Nah, they're going to teach. They're going to go after the after-school Satan program because it's not real. And as they get bamboozled into believing it's not real, what do you think is going to happen with their kids who are going to explore a little bit more, who are going to be into mysticism a little bit more, who are playing with the Ouija board, like many of us did when we were younger? We just didn't have anybody to guide us. What do you think this is going to do? They've got an internet to help guide them into who is this Satan that's on you know, I mean, you go to a school that's, you know, a Sarah B. Johnson school. At some point, kids look up and try to figure out who is Sarah B. Johnson, right? She's not in your neighborhood, but you try to figure out who she is. What do you think these kids are going to do when they're Satan school? Who is the devil?
Right.
So it's a major trick of the enemy that cannot be moved away simply because one school board decides no. Because they're in some schools. There's going to be more. There's going to be more.
Yeah, they're in schools now. They're good. They're going to be in more schools, but more even more important than that, they're elevating their profile. Just the fact that they put in the application and it's
that's right
or denied, or we're having a 4-hour board meeting trying to get them out. All those things, like, oh, I didn't know there was a Satan. I didn't know there was a satanic temple over there. Now people know. Now people know there's a satanic temple. The temple's not going anywhere. I mean, no matter what happens to the after-school program, whatever their motives are, the temple's going to still be there when whatever happens is done. And you have allowed sort of, if you haven't equipped, another seed to be planted, right? Because if you have planted a good seed, then this other seed, like to your point, like curiosity, like people naturally curious, like, what is this? What does this mean? What is this about? And what are they doing over there? And, you know,
that's right.
I mean, you know, and those are all things that and we should not just should be aware of, but we should be actively sort of working as if we know it, because we know that these things are out there. We should be taking steps to that people are equipped. I think we are clearly poorly equipped for these types of
absolutely things. Light and darkness have no fellowship, right? That's a protection. That's not just a truth, but that's a divine. That's a protection. They can't. Darkness could not comprehend the light, right? It couldn't overtake the light, nor could it fellowship with the light. So our children are protected if they understand the light. That's what's missing. They don't know they're supposed to be light. So there's a natural protection for the Christian child when the Christian child understands who they are.
Right.
These kids, you can't understand who you are from culture, and cultural Christianity. This the American way. It's never going to fight against the devil. That just fights against another foreign flag. That doesn't fight against the real devil. It's the American way. Let's come against China. It's the American way. Let's come against Russia. But the American way don't work against the devil. Only knowledge of Christ and being in Christ does that. And these children are in church, but they're not in Jesus. And therein lies the problem.
Yeah, it's a hole. I mean, it seems like it's a hole that's getting deeper.
Oh, sure. That's what it's always going to be, right?
No, right. There's no standing still, right? Either you're gaining strength or you are losing strength. There's no still like I'm holding the line. It's like there's no line to hold. Like either you're building yourself up and your kids up as a Christian and Christian family, or you're not, and you're sliding back into to what you're speaking about, cultural Christianity, where we
absolutely
we do the things and we go through the motions, but there's no juice. And so when you need the juice, when you need the fastball, you reach back and you got nothing.
That's right. That's right. Christmas comes around. You know, don't forget Silent Night. You know, right? Because that's a part of it. Before we do our gifts, before we do our other cultural things, let's make sure we add a little Silent Night, Holy Night in there. You know, so we can sit back and just kind of reflect for a moment about the shepherd and that night. And then let's go back to our regular stuff. That's where we are as a country. So in the end of the day, the idea that we were going to, as a nation, be ready to fight, no, we're going to be taken over. The remnant is going to be the one that's going to rise, and the remnant is going to one that's going to be saved. It was always going to be a remnant. And so we're seeing what cultural Christianity gets us. Ain't nobody afraid of no cultural Christian. And they're coming out of the woodwork saying, yeah, we're putting it out there in your face. Satan after school program. What you going to do about it? They would have done that 40 years ago. They couldn't have. Now they smell blood in the water. You guys are weaker than you've ever been. You know less than you've ever known. The cross means less than it's ever meant. This is the attacking point. And that's what we're seeing all over our country. So stay tuned for more.
I mean, I think we're definitely seeing it, and we're definitely going to see more. I think once you give ground, there's just going to be more attacks, more ground trying to be taken. Like the other forces that are at work are not going to back up after a victory or after some ground. Why would they? That's right. Yeah. So. Yeah, so man, great conversation. This is absolutely just about out of time. We only have time to start another topic, so yeah, I think we'll just leave it there. I think that was interesting. Hopefully, people will hear this and take it to heart and sort of understand that we got some work to do as Christians in this country. In terms
of, that's the message, right? That's what this whole thing's about. It's really trying to get people past, what can be noise and stuff that they just close their ears to be able to hear that there's some stuff that they need to be listening to. There's some things that we're bringing up here that I suspect that people hadn't necessarily thought about. And so the noise of it all, the noise of what's going on in Congress, the noise of what's going on all around us can get us to the point we just shut down and turn the radio off. We need to get past that and really be able to see there's a major attack going on in our culture. And that we are supposed to always be counterculture. So the fact that we are counter as believers should not be strange to us. They're like, man, we're kind of being ostracized. This isn't what I'm talking about. Isn't cool. It was always going to be that way. If they hated me, they're going to hate you. We just got to get used to the idea that now we're going to have to fight.
Yeah.
And part of that fight is just teaching.
Yeah, I was going to ask you just to close it out. So if you were going to, I'm sure you have, tell somebody what's the thing they have to do to get ready to be able to fight.
You know what? I think obviously as a believer, right? We're assuming already that they're a believer. Right. It is going to be study. The Bible says study to show yourself approved unto God that you're a workman. I think that the thing that you need to do is really begin to study the Word of God. But I think that the emotional and mental thing that needs to be done is that believers need to understand that they're workmen. That they have a work to do. That this is not about your personal growth. This is me getting me together. That's not what it's all about. It is you getting you together. In the process of you getting you together, it's in getting other people together by telling them about Christ. And only the Bible says only those that know God can do exploits. So there's no way you can fight, the good fight of faith if you don't operate in the faith and you don't know what the faith means.
No, this is good. That's good. And to that point, I mean, earlier today you did Live at 5 where you answered three biblical based questions that people ask, and apparently you get questions every week. Oh, it's 5 questions every week live at 5 on your page. So I mean, that's one resource people could use to sort of learn more. You do a Bible study on Thursdays, and then you also do a Sunday noon service. So we'll put links to that on our page so people can check that out. I mean, there's a lot of good not information there, but it's a lot of good stuff, life stuff. I mean, the thing that people need, not just to get stronger, but just like you said, to be equipped to work. I think there's definitely we got some non-workers.
Yes,
in the joints. It's just the non-work. I mean, if you're not working, then you're not contributing, and I think that the only reason you wouldn't is because you're not equipped, right? People are afraid to try to work because I'm not equipped. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel
right.
That you gotta get to the point where you're able to do that.
Absolutely.
The point was excellent. The only way you can do that is to get in the Word and just to have a knowledge of Christ. And hopefully people will look at those 3 resources we're going to link to and check out your stuff and take it from there. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Listen, we are out of time. Great show as always. Enjoyed the conversation again. And thanks for everyone who joined and commented. We will be back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. with another episode. So we'll see you then.
Look forward to it.
Yep. Good night. And
good night.
God bless.
Take care.